Thanks for staying with us. So still on the report of the EndSARS shooting of October 20th, 2022, Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu says the government will release its white paper, which it has done yesterday. Now, a lot of Nigerians are talking about this white paper, and there are mixed feelings about various elements within that white paper. One of which, the one that most stood out, was the governor's invite to selected people, amongst others, to come and join him on a peace walk. Many have said that his speech, unfortunately, was lengthy and drowned the core message, and therefore the work kind of stuck out for most Nigerians. But what are your thoughts on the next, this white paper, first of all? What are your thoughts on these people who are invited and the fact that most of them have declined and the governor will walk alone? And what are your thoughts on the healing the governor is asking for the land? Welcome to the show, Mr. Ekunjimi.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show this morning.
Thank you for having me. So,
yesterday, I went to bed just thinking, like, okay, how do we approach this conversation? Because I had said it before on this show that the intention of the governor was clear in the sense that he wanted peace. He wanted calmness because we saw the tension that happened last year. And obviously, he asked for help. Now, unfortunately, the report came out and says there was a massacre. But the governor is saying, no, there wasn't a massacre. 9 people weren't killed. The report is saying only 1 person died, and it's not verified. That was as a result of the gunshots. But one thing that neither the report or the white paper have told us is who did they shoot? First of all, did they shoot, and who gave the order for the shooting? So if you say they did not kill, no problem. But did they shoot? And if they shot, who gave the order? I mean, that's Nigerians want to that person that says, please, when you get there, we'll shoot them. That person is the issue many Nigerians seem to be having. And how come neither the white paper or the report outlined this person?
Okay, thank you very much. I think I will start by referring us all to a quote in the Bible, that righteousness exalts a nation. Sin is a reproach to any people. And why do I say this? In approaching any issue, I think it is important for us to have an open mind. If you look at the panels, the so-called leaked reports, which we have now come to understand as the authentic reports, it said massacre in context. I was an observer. I'm coming here today to give my own account of the story, that I was a physical observer at the panel all through. As a young man, while growing up, I became very much interested in political affairs at a very young age. And I recollect that watching TV or reading newspapers on judicial matters, even as a layman, you can decipher that this is the direction in which judgment will flow. But unfortunately, we live in a climate today where findings or judgment is at variance with evidence adduced. On October 2020, a lot of us were not at the Lekki toll gate. But I was at the Lekki panel from October 2020 to October 18 or 19, 2021. And I can tell you for free, not one shred of evidence was produced to corroborate that the military shot at protesters. Experts were summoned. We had the military who came through Major General Ibrahim Taiwo. We had Professor Bafunwa, a forensic pathologist, a renowned, accomplished academician, and forensic pathologist. And he came and said, look, I stay in my laboratory, I stay in my lab. I don't scavenge for bodies. I'm using his words. Bodies were brought from various parts of the states, based on the Chief Coroner of Lagos directive that they should conduct autopsy on bodies. Then we conducted autopsy that from the records, which nobody came out and said the prof was lying, that only 3 corpses were recovered from the Lekki area, and that from the records, 1 had gunshot wound and was recovered about 7:43 p.m. on the 21st. Mind you, not 20th. At the panel, we had people that the report was that they were shot at Lekki toll gate. And there was a particular one. The guy came out and said, no, I was not shot at Lekki toll gate too. I was shot at Lekki roundabout on the 21st in the afternoon. There's also the issue of in the report, the leaked report. One that really troubled my mind was the recommendation that the DPO of Morocco police station should be disciplined and his men who were at the toll gate. Right. I was at that panel and I was aghast. This was a man that the people who protested at the Lekki toll gate said after the military had left, that the police led by the DPO came and shot at protesters. And when the petitioners were questioned if they had a video or photographic evidence of the DPO, mind you, they said the DPO wore white jalabia. I hope we all know what white jalabia is. Yes. And they said the man came and shot at protesters with his men and killed some people. And during cross-examination, they were asked, do you have a photo evidence to corroborate what you have said? Petitioner said no. Do you have a video evidence? Petitioner said no. Then how do you know the DPO? I do. The petitioner said no. How do you know it was the DPO? Petitioner said people living in the shanties told us that they saw the DPO.
Wow. Okay, so I'll let the ladies come in a minute, but there's a part of that I said that doesn't really answer my question.
Yeah.
Because we saw CNN footages that shots were fired.
In the air.
So we saw shots fired.
In the air.
Now,
please correct that.
Okay, so if shots were fired in the air, is it appropriate to shoot at all at peaceful protesters?
Well, like I told you earlier on, I was at the panel. And one of the revelations that came out of the panel was that there was a communication gap between the time for the commencement of the curfew. Don't forget, the curfew was supposed to commence at 4 p.m. And it was later shifted to 9 p.m. due to public outcry that people will not get home. They'll be stuck on the road. And also, don't forget, the military general who came to the panel said there are rules of engagement for deployment of military. He said once a state within the Federal Republic of Nigeria declares a curfew, automatically, that curfew will not be declared by the governor sitting inside his bedroom. The governor has to sit with security heads of the state who will give reports. And it is when they are convened. Don't forget, the governor is not a security expert, but he sits over a security council meeting, a committee of the state on a weekly basis. And when the security council gives the go-ahead, the governor goes on air to announce. And once a curfew has been declared, I'm not a military man. The general made it very clear that it is imperative on the military to deploy its personnel to enforce that curfew. That it wasn't only the military, it is even the police. When we are talking of the military, it's not the army alone. The military is comprised of the Navy, Air Force, other security agencies as well. And in the deployment, they were deployed all over the state, of which we saw video footages. They were not deployed specifically. When they got to Lekki toll gate, or before Lekki toll gate, what must have transpired is it is what we had expected the panel to have come out and explained, that warranted the military men shooting into the air. Because I watched several videos, and I also recollect that the BBC correspondent who asserted that she was on ground affirmed that she saw the military shooting into the air. Any other person that said the military shot at protesters, those evidences were not corroborated. Even the forensic expert said, if the military shot at protesters, even the environment of the toll gate will be riddled with bullets. And in conducting their investigation, they said they couldn't find any bullet penetrating holes.
All right, let me let the ladies come in.
You were there. You were at the panel.
Yeah, absolutely.
And from what you were explaining, it seemed like the information you got from listening to the witnesses and the people that were coming to defend, produce evidence, is contrary to what came out in the documents that the panel released.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was at variance. You see, the judiciary deals with facts and evidences. I'll give you an example again. If we are done the needful, the university, don't forget, I hope we can all recollect the ALU4.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where somebody was owing a student and 3 of his contemporaries went with him to retrieve his debt. And when the debtor could not give him his money, he seized the debtor's laptop. And lo and behold, the man shouted, "Thief, thief." And people without asking questions descended on him. I will give you an example. There's this Nathaniel Solomon. Solomon came to the panel and said, Solomon said he's a car washer, that his junior brother is an Okada rider, that due to the lockdown, during the protests, that his brother was going to the panel every day. That about 9 p.m. on the 20th, that he was called, that his brother had been killed, that 2 of those that went with him came back to meet him there and told him that his brother had been killed at the toll gate. And under cross-examination, he produced a photograph of the corpse of his brother lying in a pool of blood. The counsel on the other side asked him, when you depose an affidavit about the death of your brother, that was the case still fresh? He said, yes, very fresh. He said, but in your affidavit, you didn't disclose that you have a picture of your brother's corpse. The guy couldn't answer. The next thing he asked him, he said, this picture where your brother is lying down, is it the spot where you met his corpse? He said, yes. He said, the counsel now asked him that, where is this location? He said, the Lekki toll booth. And the counsel now said, do you know how the Lekki toll booth environment is? That the whole place is concrete, it's a concrete floor. He said, but this body is lying in a pool of grass. He's lying inside within grasses. The next thing the guy said, no, we found his body behind in the shanties behind the Oriental Hotel. The next time they asked him that, they tried to establish that he changed the story. But the truth of the matter is that at the end of the day, he was asked that, do you have medical reports? He said no. Do you have autopsy on the cause of death? So for this victim, whom the panel in that report said should be compensated, is the only one who is aware that his brother is dead by voice of mouth. Nothing to tender before the panel that this is the medical report confirming that my brother died of gunshot.
All right.
Whether that picture is even that of the brother is another thing entirely which you ask.
Let me go on a break. Come back. Stay with us a bit.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. We're still discussing this white paper report you got from the governor of Lagos State yesterday. Before the break, BC had a question. Go ahead, please.
Yes, sir. So we had experts come here and explain to us while we were awaiting this white paper. And what I understood was that the white paper is going to come as a template to drive the recommendations, to implement the recommendations of the panel's report. But now we have a white paper that is not in alliance with what the panel's report is talking. How do does the white paper have this jurisdiction to reject or accept the report?
Absolutely. That's what the law says, that the white paper has the authority to either accept or reject. But looking at the report, about 11 of the recommendations were accepted. 6 were accepted with modifications. Don't forget, the panel recommended the disciplinary actions against policemen. And you and I know that no state in Nigeria controls any arm of the security agencies. The security agencies are under the purview of the federal government. Don't also forget that even in disciplining security officers, there are procedures. You could recollect the case of the DCP who was alleged to have been indicted in the U.S. At that rank, the only authority that can discipline such an officer is the Police Service Commission. Even the IG cannot. It doesn't have the powers under the law. And that was why you saw that the IG wrote to the PSC, and the officer was placed on suspension by the PSC. That means the police even is following the rule of law.
Right.
So in this case, the white paper, what the white paper has come to do is to look at the facts as adduced in the report, and where the evidences is inconsistent with the findings, the white paper has the responsibility to say no. A forensic pathologist came to the panel and said, we recovered 3 bodies in this area. Only one had the gunshot, and even the gunshot is not consistent with a military weapon. And the panel in its report, they cannot categorically, with facts and evidences adduced, say this was the bullet that killed the victim. And somebody somewhere just wakes up from 3 that you have accepted as reliable, valid, and say, oh, 9 died. And even for the 9 or 11 that is claimed to have died, about 2 names were repeated.
Okay, let me let Dima come in here.
So it seems from what you're saying that the panel did do a thorough job. Now, this panel, did they confirm that people were wounded? Because pictures at the time, live videos that was, shown at the time of the shooting, people went live. People were being injured, people were seen scampering and running. So even if the panel did not confirm dead people, did they confirm injured people? And how? And can they identify those people? That's the first question. The second question is that during this panel, did nobody at all, I want you to confirm or affirm or disagree, show up to say, this is my family member who was involved, who was at that protest, who is missing, whose bodies we've not found, and compelled that the bodies be presented?
Okay, one, the videos were shown that where we saw, even at the panel, the CCTV footages from the Lekki Concession Company, LCC, was aired to the whole world, and the footages from the medical history, we couldn't identify people being injured or people falling down, but we saw people scampering. But from the medical reports from hospitals around there, people visited those medical facilities and they sustained various degrees of injury, bruises, trauma, and what have you. And from the medical reports, the case notes submitted by those hospitals came out to the panel and said all the people that visited our facilities were treated and discharged. No hospital within that vicinity claimed to have treated anybody who sustained gunshots and died.
But let me go on this report, because I'm going back to what you said. Yeah. The report did say that LCCI destroyed the CCTVs. So which CCTV are you referring to? Because based on the report, they say they said that LCCI was liable for destroying the evidences. That's one. Could you confirm? So I'm wondering which CCTV you're talking about.
Let me quickly respond to that. That is part of the inconsistencies of the reports that we quarreled with, that we found fault with. A CCTV footage that you watched, and even at the hearing, the EndSARS Council alleged that those CCTV footages were doctored. They never said they were destroyed. So there's no story about destruction of CCTV footages. But when the forensic experts that the panel itself, enlisted to come and verify those footages and carry out forensic analysis of the scene, came out and said the CCTV footages from their own analysis were never tampered with, that those pictures were very correct. Because the councils itemized some portions of the CCTV footages, which they alleged might have been doctored. But the experts that the panel, empowered to do the job, came out and said, no, these CCTV footages were intact. They are solid evidence. And don't also forget that the EndSARS protesters, during the course of the proceedings, the panel also told them, go and get your own experts to go and verify these facts that you are alleging. And after about 4 or 5 adjournments, they came back and said, my lord, we don't have the funds, to do that. And the panel in its wisdom, in order to unearth the fact, the panel in its wisdom now engaged the services of a of a forensic pathologist or experts who now came out and said, we surveyed the area. One of the facts that came out was that from the time we were engaged and when the incident happened, a lot of things could have happened because the scene of the incident was not closed down to allow us to arrive and come and do forensic analysis.
Okay, let me go on a break because when we come back, I want us to move the conversation to the government's response. You know, how the governor's speech and his call for a walk. What is he trying to achieve with that? Let's go on a quick break. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your view will be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. So we're on the final lap of this conversation, and I want to go to the governor because you can see he's trying so hard to reconcile, to heal, to lead this healing. But obviously, he's still hitting a brick wall. How could he have conveyed this message properly? How could the white paper have truly bring healing? Because I hear you, but the people are saying, Oga, walk by yourself. Because until we get justice, there's no justice without it.
There's no healing without justice.
There's no healing without justice. So what could the governor have done at this point? Well, what could he do to bring real healing to this place?
Well, I think, like I stated earlier on, it is for us all to be focused and determined that we'll stand by the truth. As a good governance advocate, I believe in the rule of law, and I always say the truth wherever I am, even if I'm the only man standing. That's what late Chief Ganifahimi taught us. We have been called names. We have been abused. Our families have been called for the simple crime of asking questions. How the governor is going to heal the wounds of those who want to hold on to a position that cannot be buttressed with facts and evidence, I don't know. Maybe we need psychologists or spiritualists to come and do that. But for me, I have been focused with on the truth of the matter from day one. I've been asking questions. What differentiates us as human beings from animals is the intellect. That look, when anything occurs, that's why where we are today. I drove my car to this place. It was because people were, you know, in those days they tell us our fathers were moved by donkeys or on foot. It's by inventions, by asking questions. Societies can only make progress when people ask questions. And in this case, if the white paper has come out and has said, if you have identified that, you have listed names of people that you claimed were killed. There are no photographs. There are no evidences to corroborate. Don't forget, names like two names on that list were repeated. Somebody that didn't even make a case before the panel was awarded compensation. How do you reconcile that? There was a name like Tola, Jide, Wisdom, who bears only one name. I remember, for example, a beverage company did a raffle draw, and somebody bearing Nelson Ekujumi was announced as the winner of 100,000 naira. A lot of people were congratulating me. I said, I'm not the one who. My own Nelson Ekujumi that Nelson Ekujumi is also a member of, because the name Nelson Ekujumi, I don't have a copyright to it. Anybody can bear Nelson Ekujumi within my extended family. Right. And at the end of the day, it was the publication of that person's Nelson Ekujumi with the phone number that made people to allow me rest, because they were like, we must collect our own share from this money. You not take it.
Okay, we have to wrap up. Let Sakwe have some final questions.
Honestly, personally, I've been very, very confused by it. It's an emotional situation for us on this show. But when you say that the only way to get justice is, the only way to resolve is if we get justice, if there is a sense of justice to it, what do you think, based on your own experience? You've disagreed blatantly with the recommendations of the Judiciary Panel. You have said that you were there. What would you say would be the appropriate recommendation that can bring closure to what happened on the 20th of October?
The appropriate recommendation that can bring closure is the truth that the white paper has identified, that the forensic or the expert's opinion is in contradiction with the so-called findings. How can you say somebody is missing and presumed dead? The panel was not set up to go and presume. The panel was set up to go and find out facts. How can somebody say my person has died? You cannot produce the corpse. There's no evidence of the corpse. You cannot produce police reports. There's no medical report. There's no autopsy. How do we even know if the so-called people that died, that they didn't die from maybe heart attack?
All right, we have to wrap up on this. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on this. As the governor has said, I mean, obviously, Nigerians, many of the people he called for the walk, for the peace walk, have rejected it. And,
It's within their rights.
Oh, yes. So,
Right.
but from what he has said, he truly wants us to move ahead from this. And we only hope that somehow we find closure to what has happened and indeed move forward from this. Let's go on a break. When we come back, we'll move on to other topics. Stay with us. We'll be right back.